Alright, we are recording. So, in chapter 1 now of Return of the Jedi, because it started with a prologue. Let me see. Starts with Luke building a lightsaber, which I know I talked about in the previous video because I did look ahead just to figure out exactly where we were and if that helped with figuring out why it started with a prologue. Because, I mean, it's like, when is that happening relative to the rest of the story? Still potentially unsure. I'll get to that in a little bit. But it starts with Luke building his lightsaber, which is not in the movie. There was a scene, but it wasn't included in the movie. But yeah, as it goes, though, one thing that I find curious, I don't recall it happening in the previous books, previous stories, is they try to actually provide words, vocalizations for R2's speech. And it's like, why? I mean, I don't see it being necessary there. Like, you're trying to build up a language that people might be able to understand, even though it can just be an undecipherable form of communication for him that 3PO has to translate. Or just you writing it out as he's making whistles and beeps to this effect, which is what the other books have done. So it is odd. I'm not sure why they chose to do that, but whatever. There are a lot of creative descriptions in here, which I like seeing because that is something I'm typically kind of weak at. Like the paragraph spent just describing Jabba is actually quite effective. I don't know how well. I'm not sure the timing of certain things, like if they already had the model for Jabba figured out, or what. But I mean, it's yeah, that's Jabba the Hutt. It very accurately describes him, and is actually more disgusting in the book. It's very well done. Very happy with it. And you know, of course, plenty of other things as well, but like that's one that definitely stands out. Um, One inconsistency concerning Jabba. It describes that he knows many languages, but he makes a point. It's like a point of honor for him. That's actually how it describes it. That he only speaks in Huttese. Okay. And then it even says like that's the only such point. Like that's the only way that Jabba has any honor to him. That's fine. Whatever. Oh, I should also add the way Jabba is described. I mean, for one thing, with that does indicate he is highly intelligent, but also does describe that this dude is really depraved, very evil, and all that, which is rather different from what he was like in A New Hope. Which maybe we can just interpret that he is being retconned here a little bit. We might also be able to interpret that it's off the movies. We're working off the movies instead of trying to have a coherent set of books. I mean, is what it is. And I guess it depends on how you want to consider these books. Are they novelizations of the movies? Most likely, yes, it is completely how we should interpret them. Even though they do potentially predate and have some things that are corrected, that are fixed compared to the movies. Or do we take them as their own series of books? That then, you know, like the movies are parallel to them or derived from the stories. As that, it's most likely we should just take them as novelizations. So they are just an alternate format of the movies. So yeah, meaning that like with Jabba being described so differently here than what we saw in A New Hope, it's because, well, yes, this is the book. The novelization of Return of the Jedi doesn't have to be loyal to the novelization of A New Hope. It needs to be loyal to Return of the Jedi, the movie. But yeah, anyway, so it does describe that he knows a great many languages, but he only speaks Huttese, and it's a point of honor for him. But then later, when Leia arrives, disguised as the bounty hunter bringing in Chewie, it says that Leia is speaking in Ubis, and you don't know it's Leia yet. Leia's that reveals at the end of the chapter. Whatever, we know, because we've seen the movie. Yeah, that she is speaking Ubis, which is described as being somewhat electronic, and that it makes perfect sense for where these nomadic people come from, like the world that the nomadic people that she is pretending to be come from. It's perfect there. And then says the Jabba starts speaking that to her. I guess it's not a point of honor then that he only speaks Huttese. I guess it's not a point at all that he only speaks Huttese. And actually he's speaking for a little bit, but then he stops because he's like unsure of what the word is. Like it's not the language he normally speaks. So then say, 3PO, come over here. I need you to translate for me. It's like, okay, it's fine that Jabba would have 3PO there translating for. I mean, or that he doesn't need 3PO to translate what Leia is saying. That's fine. Kinda. There is actually a reason why he shouldn't do that. I'll get to that. But you can't say on this page that he only speaks Huttese and it's a special point for him. And then, like, 3 pages later, maybe 4 pages later, oh yeah, now he's speaking the language just because this random bounty hunter that he's never known before, he's never encountered before, is speaking a different language. Come on. Yeah, I'm a little concerned. But going back to the thing that I said, there is actually a reason why Jabba would, like, always have 3PO translating. That's very legitimate. And it is a power play kind of thing, where it's if I know, like, if Jabba always has 3PO translate, 3PO is going to change things. And he does in here, because you do get Leia's translations, and then you've got 3PO saying them, and things like that. Jabba knowing what the person is saying without the translation can be very powerful. It can make it so that he understands better what is going on, and also if he can trust 3PO or not. He almost certainly can trust 3PO and isn't necessarily going to be upset that, like when Leia is actually insulting, refers to Jabba as a bag of trash, bag of garbage, and 3PO doesn't carry that through. Jabba can be like, well, yeah, that's okay. You're trying not to upset me. I get that. But it still is like he understands what's being said. And it is something that he's evil, he is depraved, but Jabba's like a king. He would want to be operating at that level where he knows what's going on and you don't know all the cards that he has in play. And one of them would be, I know what you're saying. I'm not talking to you in that language. I have somebody translating. But I do know what you're saying even without him. That makes a lot of sense. And would very much betray his it would betray and it would demonstrate his great intelligence with how to handle different things. Because it can also be then, like, in the negotiations, if they are, like, trying to whisper back and forth with each other, if there was more than one there. And Jabba's understanding this, because 3PO might not be hearing it or whatever, just the whole getting additional information. And there's also things like, if you ever see the movie Failsafe, just based on a book. I've not read that book. But one point in there is they have the President of the United States talking with the Soviet premier. It is a Cold War era movie, very much a Cold War era movie. And he has a translator there who he does say, like, before the call even starts, don't just tell me what he's saying. Tell me how he's saying it. Tell me if he's upset, if he's agitated, things like that. Like, I need the emotional information as well. That's exactly why Jabba, knowing many languages, but not necessarily just translating it all for himself, but having a translator, that's why it makes a lot of sense. And there's also the whole, things that can be lost in translation, which is partially the emotional stuff, but also the concept of just different words being chosen. But it is you immediately undermine that by showing that Jabba will actually speak this language, which contradicts what you said earlier. As I said, this is concerning for the quality of the writing, quality of the book as we go forward. All right. I do think that the movie version of the negotiations there is actually better than the book, mainly because less is spoken. Like, especially with when the thermal detonator is pulled out. For one thing, it's suggested like Leia's been holding it the entire time, as opposed to, like, pulling it out. And also it's like pulling out and showing and just saying it to 3PO quietly. So Jabba's like, what did he say? And then 3PO was like, spit it out. He says, does Leia actually demand a hyper? I don't remember, but it's like he has a thermal detonator as well. And that's when everyone knows. It's like, it's much better in the movie where it's just in the back and forth a little bit, and then it's like, why should I pay, Jabba's like, why should I pay you more than 25? And it's like, and then you see the detonator pulled out, and it's like, because he's holding thermal detonator, and everybody freaks out. It's like, that's so much better. And also, I'm just trying to think of how best to put it. I think it is better to pull it out and let everybody see it than having Goldenrod have to translate so everybody knows. It's like, just let people see. I mean, you're threatening with it. Show it to people. Don't just rely on the idiot droid. So yeah, I mean, it's too many words. Like, just showing it is all you need to do. But instead, there's like several sentences there concerning all this. Yeah, I think that the movie does do it better by cutting it down. Next point is, so as Chewie's let off and Leia goes off to another side of the room, Chewie does spot Lando there, who it's described as he's just some skiff pilot there. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it's like he's in disguise. Although one thing that did occur to me, Han has had dealings with Jabba for a while. Lando and Han go way back. How do Jabba and Lando not cross paths such that Jabba would recognize him and nobody there would recognize him either? I mean, Boba Fett actually should recognize him, and Boba Fett is there, so it is. Anyway, the descriptions, there are points given, like actually listed off for why Lando is there and helping. And I actually don't like them too much, because they're a bit too selfish. Like they have a selfish taint to them. With how, I'm just like, yes, he's doing it. Like, number one is he's doing it because it's his fault that Han was captured. It's like, that's true. Then it's like, yeah, I also hate the Empire, and Han is, kind of higher up in the rebellion. At least he knows higher up people. So if I help him, that'll get me into good graces. Like, seriously. It can't just be also, I really hate the Imperials. It's also weird because it describes as, like, the Imperial police have gotten in my way one too many times. It's like, I mean, even in the movie of Empire Strikes Back, it's like, you've been avoiding them for years. It was only, like, right then that there was actually an issue. Oh, and that also reminds me of one thing. One difference between the book and the movie. In the movie, in Empire, you have Vader say, I'm going to take the Wookiee and the princess with me. And Lando objects to that. That's not the case in the book. In the book, I forgot to mention, in the book, no, they were going to stay on Cloud City, but Vader was going to leave a squad there of stormtroopers to make sure they stay there. And in a way, that makes more sense because, well, okay, in the book, Lando is concerned with Cloud City. So he wants to protect it, and he wants to keep the Empire out of it. So that being the threat there makes sense. Now, he likes Leia, he's attracted to her, he doesn't want her to leave, so the idea of her staying, he's good with that. But he doesn't want the squad being left there. Because, that's just that one bit that means that the Imperials will eventually take over. Whereas in the movie, it is more of he is actually trying to protect them for whatever reason. And so them being taken away is a problem. Whereas, I mean, arguably, he could even be alright, that's fine. Are you sure you gotta take the princess? I mean, she's, it's like, yes, alright. Because, I mean, his primary concern, in the book, I will grant, it's more clear than in the movie, but it's still in both, is Cloud City. He is trying to be responsible there. So here, it's like he's back to being selfish. He's not thinking as that administrator that had to take care of everyone that lived on Cloud City. So it's, yeah, he's selfish, and his reasons are quite cynical, that he just wants to get into the good graces with the rebellion so he can stick to the Empire. It's like, and it's, as I put in the notes, it will be interesting because we know from the movies he becomes General Calrissian. Okay, that's fine. You've set him up now as being quite selfish, and those are his motivations. So it's like, how do you have him change some to have it mesh, or are we just going to ignore that he's really not of the right temperament to be a general? For what it's described, his skills are, because it does mention how he is very good at observing. He's like, making all the calculations. Makes perfect sense. That's consistent with what you saw before, and it would be consistent with him being in general. But the description here, I wouldn't want him being a general. Because I'm saying, where are your loyalties, basically? And the description given for why he's doing this, I would not trust his loyalties. Okay, I'm going to skip one and come back to that. But the last note I have here is it describes that for Han coming out of the carbonite hibernation, him having a memory overload. So, like, this is part of the hibernation sickness where his memories are just, like, flooding back to him. And it describes that people that have undergone this, which is also curious because it's kind of suggested that in Empire that, well, no, carbonite freezing kills most people, so why would people be going through this? But anyway, that it can drive them mad because they don't necessarily know how to sort through all the images that come back, which that's also not how memory works, but that's a side point. It is not image-based. But it's like, it can drive people mad. And it's like, okay, this is a neat idea. Memory can actually be a very interesting concept to explore in storytelling. Especially, I lost the word for it, but basically where you make something abnormal about it. Like this, it flooding back. I've also got in one book a character where he has a super perfect memory, even. And by the way, perfect memory is exactly a thing. It's a superhero fantasy story, and this is basically superpower, so it goes beyond that, even. And it's terrible, by the way. Having perfect memory can really, really ruin your life. But anyhow, with this, it's like with the whole memory overload, it's like, why? Why did you put this in here? I don't understand the utility of this. It describing people going mad from it, which also doesn't make much sense, because if you're trying to suggest, like, somebody's life flashing before their eyes, it's the same kind of concept. There are people that has happened to, and they've not gone mad from it. So it's like, where are you getting this from? I don't understand this. What is the value in making this statement? And I don't think it has a value, actually. So I'm just being a neat idea, but it's one that, what is the utility of it, and why is it there? I'm saying it doesn't make sense. For other reasons as well. I mean, just you can do other things with it and have it work fine. By the way, I will say it does say that Han is not susceptible to this. Like, how you would know that, I don't know. I mean, yes, omnipotent author knows this, or omniscient author, both really, knows that. But it still is a what about Han's character makes him not susceptible to this? Not really explained, not really provided. Anyway, so the prior note, the one that I skipped over, is it does say that Han was in the Carbonite for 6 Tatooine months, but I'm still going to say 6 months, because there has been nothing established at all of time being different on any planet. Which is actually one of those things that I'm trying to remember. Star Trek does slightly touch on it, but even then it's a little unclear. Trying to remember if Stargate does. But the idea of the passage of time being different on different planets, in Star Trek, you do have, in Deep Space Nine, a reference to it being a 26-hour day instead of 24-hour. Because that's like what Bajor is. Don't remember if it's ever mentioned on TNG. But it still is, okay, a day is a actual concept on a planet because it's based on the rotation. A year is a concept because it is a revolution. A month isn't. A month is an arbitrary marker, so I don't know what this... I have no reason but to believe that it is that 6 months could actually still be consistent across across every world. And as I also said, there's nothing establishing that Tatooine has a different length of day than anything else. So that tells me the most appropriate interpretation is this is 6 months after Empire Strikes Back. Okay, we can work with that, but we also have a problem. That at the end of Empire Strikes Back, in the book, not in the movie, well, I don't remember if it was something Luke said aloud or something in his head, but anyway, he had promised that he would go to train, complete his training to become a Jedi Knight, then rescue Han. Like, I know I'm not strong enough now, I'm going to go and train to be stronger, and then I'm going to rescue you. So either he can do that in under 6 months, in under 6 months. Or he never did that. Probably he just never did that. So it's like, despite making the promise, he didn't get. But as I said at the start of this video, essentially, or at least nearer, it's a novelization of Return of the Jedi. Its loyalty is to Return of the Jedi, not to the prior books, and potentially even not the prior movies. So a little disappointing there, but I guess there is one other thing that I can mention. Oh, I actually did forget. I did forget one note. It is here. I just overlooked it. Yeah. The plan. Luke's plan, which we know later Luke thought up this plan. Okay. It's not clear Lando's role in it. Because it does say that he's been there for a while. So, okay, did Luke come up with this plan a while ago, but it's only now that they're doing it? How has Lando, if he's been there, been providing any information to them? I mean, it's unclear. But one thing that is mentioned that I actually am curious about, and it might not be explained because it's one of those things where I can understand not sharing, but the problem is, like, there's information I don't share in some of my stories because the person I'm following, if it's a third-person book, doesn't know it. So I can't share that information and they don't know it. But this is bouncing around a lot more. So it's closer to third-person unlimited. I do wonder if we will get an explanation here that it says when R2 and 3PO are being given their assignments, the droid that's in charge of all of them says that we've been losing a lot of astro droids of late, probably to theft. Who is stealing from Jabba the Hutt? But probably to theft, so we'll put you on the barge to R2. I wonder if that is part of the plan. Meaning that most likely, either Lando or Luke has been doing this. I don't know about Lando. For one thing, he is actually with them, so that would be easier to catch, because, like, hey, what are you doing over here? Kind of things. Like, how did you get over here? Why are you in these places? Kind of thing. Whereas if Luke is sneaking in, stealing the droids and leaving, that's different. Like, it's kind of like in a video game. You knock in a video game that's stealth-based and you're knocking out guards. People know when a guard is missing. So when is Lando doing this that he doesn't appear not where he should be or is somewhere he shouldn't be? So it can in some ways get trickier there versus him just providing information that Luke can use. But I do wonder if we will get that explained later, that it was actually somebody orchestrating that so R2 is where they need him to be. Or is it just completely random? I don't know. I hope it is that they were manipulating to get R2 in this place. But I don't know. It would have to be stated to be certain. I don't necessarily know how, unless it is like they do explain to Han what all the plan was. I guess going back a little bit with the whole 6-month thing, I do wonder when that puts the prologue then. And also, like, when was the new Death Star started? I mean, just I understand it needs to be a short period of time for one thing. With the Empire, they completely screwed up being 3 years. What does that translate to? Lots of things should have happened, then that didn't. So it being 6 months is less time for things to happen, and that would need to happen in that time. So yeah, I don't know. It will be interesting to see if this gets explained for what has happened during those 6 months. Yeah, I don't know. Plus, I guess there is also that question of why are the rebels allowing them to do this? I get that it's only 3 of them, really, plus Lando. Chewie would be, well, actually no, because Chewie would have been like Han, an honorary rebel. Leia and Luke are the only 2 actual members of the rebellion. One is one of their main leaders in Leia, like, Senator Organa, it's like very high up in there. And Luke was referred to as Commander Luke and is the hero of Yavin and all that. It's like, why would they let them do this? I mean, I'm sorry, it's just one of those things. I get technical, and it's like, okay, we need explanation here. Especially with regards to the whole in the prologue, they're forming an armada. That's the kind of thing where, okay, Leia, maybe we don't need you right now because we're not doing political stuff, so you can go. That's fine. Luke, we need you. We can't lose you right now. I mean, it's like we're kind of doing ship stuff. That's your thing. Can we? I get technical. I think that technical stuff does matter, and that's why I'd like explanations such as if they have been orchestrating the asteroids disappearing. Which is, again, who would steal from Jabba? And why is Jabba tolerating that as well? I'm saying, why is that not okay, you're watching. We're having people watch all of them so we don't lose anymore. And not even because I'm losing things, but somebody's taking my stuff. Jabba should be, like, fully, I will burn you alive for this. I mean, it just frustrating. It'll be interesting to see how it continues going. And I'm also curious if we will get a time skip in the future as well. Like something. So I'm just thinking about the movie. So they rescue Han. We then see Luke at Dagobah doing his whole thing. Finishing off with Yoda, who basically doesn't train him anymore. Just is like, well, you because you now know the truth about Vader and where you are, you matured. You're a Jedi Knight now, so the training is finished. And then Yoda dies. And then we're following the rebels with Han fully recovered, and Luke walks in to help with everything. It's like, that could potentially actually in the book be weeks. That perhaps Luke does do some additional training. Because he's been gone for about 6 months from Yoda. He could potentially have more to learn. There certainly are more things he could learn, or at least having a discussion so that Yoda does recognize that, yes, you are mature enough that you have gotten past that period with learning the Force where you could be tempted. Now you face that temptation. You understand it, so you can, well, either reject it or we're lost and you don't reject it. But also, the whole conversation then with Ben about why didn't you tell me that whole thing. And it's like, we know we'll get that, but it's like, will there be more with Yoda? Or are we not going to get a time skip here? Which is also reasonable to give more time for Han to recover. Also, Han to formally join and be elevated to General. Lando to be elevated to General, because when you think about it, they should really be like, oh, you're Lando Calrissian. Yes. You want to join up? Yes. Didn't you just betray, like, some of our very important people? I also helped rescue them, but they wouldn't have needed rescuing if you hadn't betrayed them. Can I be a general? Oh, yeah, sure. Hopefully we get it, well, not really a time skip, but just a length of time there to explain things. But, I don't know, because it might be like Empire Strikes Back that did not explain things either, seemed to really just be serving the movie. Maybe with this, there will be less just movie serving, and more of no, I'm actually going to tell the story here, tell the complete story, make sure it all makes sense, is coherent and robust. So, we shall see. That was chapter 1. There's only 9 chapters in the story, so actually, yeah, well, they might be longer chapters, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But, yeah, on chapter count, it is the shortest of the 3. But anyway, see you next time for chapter 2. Goodbye.